Well, thank you, Fahira, and I must say I'm very, very pleased to join you here. The energy and the dedication of this small group in Sarajevo is really inspiring. So my hat's off to all of you. I want to talk to you about the Virtual Vis East, which took place this year, and how it is opening things up to arbitrators and arbitration practitioners around the world. First of all, for any of you who don't know about it, just briefly, the Willem C. Vis International Commercial Arbitration Moot, also known as the Vis, has a sister organization called the Vis East, which is a separate organization to that in Vienna. Vienna, as most of you will know, was founded a long time ago, 1993, and now has over 300 teams, almost 400 teams that take part every year. And the goal of the Vis Moot is to provide practical training for the students of international commercial law. The training is specifically about the Convention on the International Sale of Goods and about international arbitration law and practice. So the Moot works with teams of law students who work on a realistic dispute, which is given to them in early October each year. And the dispute is always concerning the international sale of goods, so it brings in the CISG, and it's arbitrated in the state of Danubia, which is a model law country. So the Vis became very, very popular, and it's still amazingly popular. But what I noticed when I first went there, which was in the late 90s, or mid 90s, that there were very few Asian participants. Maybe this is because of the long and the expensive travel from Asia to get to Vienna. Also, the way that Asian schools educated their lawyers was very traditional, very much the lecture and exam model that many of us have abandoned. And there was just really no mooting culture in Asian jurisdictions at that time. So to encourage Asian participants to get this kind of experience, the Vis East was born in Hong Kong in 2003. Now, it's not limited to Asians, and in fact, we have people from all over the world. We have 120 teams registered for this year, and they're from, I think, 30-something different countries. The students benefit from the Vis East in many ways. Obviously, they're getting knowledge of the CISG. I tell them that they probably will have more knowledge about the Convention on the International Sale of Goods than 95% of the lawyers in their countries. They also get really good experience in how arbitration practice works. Usually it is usually the rules of one organization which are used, and so they get a particular experience and exposure to that particular institution. It's a practical, hands-on experience dealing with a real case. They learn research skills, legal analysis, drafting, advocacy, also learning to work as a team, and that means organizing the team, responsibility, time management, commitment, and just really working together. Obviously, for some of them, it's their first experience in traveling outside their own countries, and this is really quite often a huge eye-opener for them with the cross-cultural awareness and the social interaction and the networking that happens at the Vis Moot. It's also visibility to potential employers and arbitration professionals because it's become now a badge of honor to have done the Vis Moot. And employers know that Vis Mooties, as we call them, know how to work from day one. So we're also seeing an evolution of the mooting and the arbitration culture in Asian countries. Arbitrators benefit too. Arbitrators at the Vis East, for example, they have to be qualified as arbitration counsel and in at least one jurisdiction. Many of them are arbitrators. There are some arbitrators who are not lawyers, of course, and they're obviously welcome. But a lot of our arbitrators are very senior people who have seen the benefits of the Moot, who love the atmosphere and the chance to work with the students. And so they come back year after year. And we also get new arbitrators each year, and they're there obviously for the fun and for the experience of it, but also because they get to meet these senior arbitrators. I remember my first year, second year at the Moot in Vienna, I was on a panel with Alan Redfern and another with Martin Hunter. And I knew these people. I'd seen them, worked with them basically only in an organizational capacity, but I never thought I would ever get a chance to sit on a panel with them and actually interact with counsel. So that was really wonderful for me as a young arbitrator. And for the older generation, they are meeting the stars of the future. Well, this year in 2020, Orals Week was scheduled for March 21st. And on the 23rd of January, COVID struck Hong Kong, and the teams, of course, couldn't travel. Hong Kong was closing down. And by mid-February, we realized that we had to take a decision to either postpone or cancel the Vis East. Cancellation was just not an option. We just knew we could not disappoint the hundreds of students that were planning on taking part and who had been working so hard for 4 months on preparing their arguments. So we just said, well, we have to do it virtually. And so teams and the arbitrator judges were invited to participate virtually via Microsoft Teams, which was the platform that we used. And of the 138 teams that we had registered last year, 72 decided to go virtual with us and take the plunge. It was a very steep learning curve for the organizers. I am not the most particularly tech savvy person in the world, as my staff will tell you. And many of the organizers were really attacking this for the first time, and the arbitrators as well. So huge preparation and planning, training of volunteers, figuring out a protocol. We had great support from a company called eBrem, which is a startup in Hong Kong, which is, they've got online dispute resolution now in Hong Kong. So it went very, very well. We conducted over 160 hearings. Every one of them had 3 arbitrators. Some people did have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Some of them didn't finish until midnight, but everybody got there, everybody did it. There were a few little technical hitches, but it all went well. And we did it. We proved it could be done. And we were the first to do it. And since then, there have been a lot of international moots, and they've all gone virtual now for this period of time because we don't have a choice. But we've proved that regular people, students and arbitrators, could go virtual and without complex, expensive systems or high-level expertise or consultants. But we also have highlighted the flexibility of arbitration and the arbitration process. We have new expertise now that didn't exist 9-10 months ago. Some students and lawyers had experience with online courses and social media as well as online research. But for everybody, this was the first time a moot had been run online. I think a lot of people had to overcome the baby boomer generation, my generation, really had to overcome reluctance to embrace this new technology. It was scary, but having done it, it also is extremely satisfying. People who barely heard of Zoom or Microsoft Teams are now adept at it and use it practically every day. I think people also, both students and arbitrators, have used the Moot to gain confidence on screen. They learned about placing the light, putting your camera in a certain place to optimize your visuals, use of the microphone and muting. We heard what happens when you don't notice that you are not on mute. So that kind of etiquette, which is very important, which people are getting to learn as they go along. And this all happened over the few days of the Moot for these people. Also, people learned the importance of being punctual because it's really hard to be late for a meeting online because it's so obvious that you're late. You can't sneak in the back door. The Moot also has brought increased accessibility for law students. We have had so many students who tell me, I'd love to be part of the Moot, but we just don't have the money. Our team cannot possibly find that money to get there. Now, many of them end up they do find the money, but frankly, there are schools who simply are prevented either for financial or for visa reasons, and they just can't get to either Vienna or to Hong Kong. So these people are now able to participate because we've opened the world to we've opened the Vis East to the world now. So also there are, because of the varying school year times, sometimes the Mooties found that the orals week was either in the middle of their exams or just before or just after, and it was just too difficult for them to envision what was really a 10 or 12 day trip at the least across the world at the time of exams. Well, it's easier now that they don't have to move. Online coaching, practice sessions are easier to plan and manage no matter where you are. Several new schools are joining us this year from countries that have not been, either have never been to the Vis East or have traditionally been underrepresented. Obviously, there's no international travel, which is one of the big attributes of the Vis participation. There isn't this cross-cultural social experience, which is one of the wonderful fun things about the Vis Moots. I think remote meetings do tend to be less personal than having a coffee or a beer together at the end of the day. And that bonding phenomena that we've seen at the Vis Moot is probably going to be decreased. Now, you know, we did hear that the younger generation is getting used to communicating this way. They're growing up with this. And so for them, it isn't something which is different. It's something which they've always lived with. And perhaps that's going to have an effect as well. It won't be such a terrible thing if we do have to continue this. We're also going to be trying to, this year, organize some more social events online to bring participants together when they're not just arguing with each other. But going out to the professionals of the Virtual Vis East, as I said, they really had to take a step, you know, right, well, more than a step. They had to plunge into some deep water for some of them when they didn't have any experience at all with online work. And I mean, I know people who still have their secretaries do their emails for them. And we're talking real baby boomers or older. But they dug in there and they came and participated and judged our moots for us. We had great feedback after the first Virtual Vis East, and people were saying it was great, that it was convenient. An arbitrator who might come and stay for 2 or 3 days said that they were willing to come and hear arguments every day, you know, 1 or 2 a day for a week, because they could do it from their office and on their lunch break. The removal of the financial constraints also works for the arbitrators, because many of our newer arbitrators are junior lawyers and their firms are not necessarily going to pay for them to travel to Hong Kong. We're open to anybody that has a computer and a microphone and the CISG and arbitration expertise to judge. So we're seeing arbitrators from every continent now. We've got a great deal more diversity with the virtual Vis Moot than we could ever have with people coming in person. How many times have I heard or thought, find me someone under 35? Because the junior people, the Generation X's and Generation Y's, they are adept at managing internet communications. They are adept at working with this technology, and they can be extremely useful in a council team. So their technical contribution gets them into the team at a time when perhaps they would never even have been thought of before. And so their involvement in the process, although it may start out being technical, like how do I get this document up on the screen, they get involved in the practical part, but they're also being able to witness what goes on in an arbitration, and so and to have a useful role there. So I think it's opening doors in that way as well. As Mohammed said a couple of minutes ago, the expertise now, you can get it anywhere. Geography is no longer an obstacle. You can hire a legal team, or you can appoint an arbitrator from anywhere in the world. Now, I'm on 4 tribunals right now, all of which were formed prior to March of this year, say. And of those, on those tribunals, I've got parties from Canada, the United States, Kuwait, Egypt, China, Taiwan, India, and Singapore. The arbitrators are from the US, Canada, England, and France. What's wrong with that?
I apologize, Ms. Louise. We just have another minute left, so please, if you can conclude at this point, that would be great.
Yes, I'm just about to stop. All right. So what I'm saying is that this is letting us have a lot more diversity in terms of not only getting students in, young arbitrators and arbitration counsel in, but also making the whole thing, technically making the whole thing work in a way it hasn't worked before. We hope that we won't have to do it a third time, but we're ready to do it if we need to.